The Driskill Hotel loomed ahead, its stately limestone facade bathed in the golden hues of the setting Texas sun. Nestled in the heart of downtown Austin, the hotel had long been a symbol of opulence and grandeur, a favorite for politicians, celebrities, and dignitaries. But behind its lavish exterior, the Driskill held secrets that had whispered through its halls for more than a century. It was said that if you stayed long enough, you would hear the footsteps of those who never truly left. And if you were unlucky enough, you might even meet one of them. Sarah Jennings didn't believe in ghosts. A rising star in the world of journalism, she had made a name for herself as a fearless investigator, debunking myths, urban legends, and paranormal claims. When her editor assigned her a piece on the haunted Driskill Hotel, she took it as a challenge. Sarah's goal was simple: to spend a week in the infamous room 525, where the ghost of a young girl was said to appear, and return with an article that proved once and for all that the legends were nothing more than the product of overactive imaginations. As Sarah stepped into the grand lobby of the hotel, she was struck by its timeless beauty. The floors gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, and rich mahogany furniture filled the space with an air of regal elegance. But beneath the beauty, there was an eerie stillness, a quiet that seemed to settle deep in her bones. A large portrait of Colonel Jesse Driskill, the hotel's founder, hung prominently on the wall, his eyes seeming to follow her every move. "Welcome to the Driskill," the concierge greeted her with a polite smile, though his eyes held a hint of something unreadable, as if he knew more than he let on. He handed her the key to room 525. "You'll be staying in one of our more historic rooms." Sarah raised an eyebrow at his choice of words, but said nothing. She wasn't here to entertain ghost stories. Taking the brass key, she made her way to the elevator, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. The ride to the 5th floor was smooth, the antique elevator creaking slightly as it carried her upward. She found her room at the end of a long, narrow hallway, the number 525 gleaming dully against the dark wood of the door. The moment she entered, she felt it, an unsettling chill, as if the air was just a little too cold, a little too still. Room 525 was luxurious but old-fashioned, with deep red velvet drapes, ornate wooden furniture, and a massive four-poster bed draped in heavy quilts. A grand mirror hung on the wall opposite the bed, reflecting the dim light from the chandelier. Despite its elegance, the room felt oppressive, as though the walls were closing in on her. Shaking off the sensation, Sarah dropped her bags and pulled out her laptop. She had work to do. The plan was simple: document every night, gather interviews from staff and guests, and leave with proof that the ghost stories were nothing more than hotel folklore. The first night was uneventful, almost peaceful. Sarah spent hours researching the hotel's history. It had been built in 1886 by Colonel Driskill, a cattle baron who had intended it to be the finest hotel south of St. Louis. But over the years, strange stories had attached themselves to the hotel. Guests had reported ghostly apparitions, lights flickering, and objects moving on their own. But the most infamous tale was that of the little girl who had died in the hotel in the late 1800s. She had been the daughter of a visiting senator, and while playing with a ball, she had fallen down the grand staircase to her death. Since then, her spirit had allegedly been seen in room 525, where she had spent her last days. Sarah rolled her eyes as she read through the accounts. It was classic ghost story fare: tragic child, unfinished business, eternally haunting the place of her death. Nothing she hadn't heard before. But then, on the second night, things began to change. It started with a draft. The room had been warm all evening, but around midnight, Sarah felt a sudden, sharp chill. She glanced at the windows, tightly shut. The temperature continued to drop, and her breath fogged in front of her. A shiver ran down her spine, though she tried to brush it off as a quirk of the building's ancient air conditioning system. Then she heard it. A faint, rhythmic sound: tap, tap, tap. She paused, listening. It was distant at first, but unmistakable, the sound of a ball bouncing. The kind of ball a child might play with. Sarah's heart quickened. She stood up, looking around the room, trying to locate the source of the noise. But as she moved toward the door, the bouncing stopped. The silence that followed was oppressive. She waited, straining her ears, but there was nothing. With a deep breath, she laughed at herself. "I'm letting this place get to me," she muttered, shaking her head. She was about to sit back down when she saw it, movement in the mirror. Sarah froze. In the reflection, just behind her, she saw the faint outline of a small figure. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6, dressed in an old-fashioned white lace dress. Her hair was dark and curly, framing her pale face. The girl's hollow eyes met Sarah's in the mirror, and for a moment, neither moved. The room seemed to close in around Sarah. She whipped around, her heart pounding in her chest. But when she turned, the girl was gone. The room was empty. A cold sweat broke out across Sarah's skin. She stood in the middle of the room, her hands shaking, trying to make sense of what she had seen. It had to have been her imagination. She had been reading ghost stories all night. It was just her mind playing tricks on her. But deep down, she knew better. That night, she barely slept. The air in room 525 felt thick, heavy, as if something unseen was watching her. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant sound in the hallway made her heart race. And then, around 3 a.m., the giggling began. It was soft at first, almost playful, like a child's laughter. But there was something off about it, something unnerving. Sarah sat up in bed, her heart hammering in her chest. The giggling grew louder, closer, and was soon accompanied by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, small, light footsteps, as if a child was running down the hallway. Summoning all her courage, Sarah crept out of bed and approached the door. She pressed her ear against it, listening. The laughter and footsteps continued, but when she opened the door, the hallway was empty. When she returned to the room, she found the mirror fogged, as though someone had breathed on it. And there, written in the condensation, were the words, "Come play with me." Sarah stumbled back, her heart in her throat. She grabbed her phone, fumbling to turn on the camera, but when she looked up again, the message had vanished. The mirror was clear, as if nothing had ever been there. Terrified, Sarah packed her things and left the room, fleeing to the lobby where she sat until dawn, too shaken to return. She couldn't explain what had happened, she didn't want to explain it. All she knew was that whatever haunted the Driskill, it was far more real than she had ever imagined. The next day, she approached one of the hotel's older staff members, a woman who had worked there for decades. Sarah hesitated before asking, "Has anyone ever seen her?" The woman's eyes softened with understanding. "The little girl? Oh, many have seen her. She means no harm, but she's lost. Still looking for her ball, I suppose. She's been here for over 100 years, waiting for someone to play with her." Sarah checked out of the Driskill that morning, her article left unfinished. No longer was she the skeptic, the one who didn't believe. The ghost of the little girl had made sure of that. Even now, miles away from Austin, in the quiet of her apartment, Sarah sometimes swore she could still hear the soft sound of a ball bouncing in the dead of night, a haunting reminder that some spirits never rest.